nice gilded gray stone figure of Buddha, a beautiful example from Northern Qi Dynasty, which is 550 to 577 AD. A beautiful example. It was about 27 inches tall, nicely done. There was a very good write-up on it by Robert Mowry covering this example, and this had been exhibited at Eskenazi Company over in Europe some years ago in the 70s. A fairly well-known piece among collectors, and it did very well. It brought $1.4 million, $55,000, and this was against a $1.2 to $1.8 million estimate. So it sold right in the middle of its estimate, which was a good result. It was a nice example, and this was a particularly nice one. They don't turn up very often, as you know. And next we'll move over and we're going to take a look at the Long Quan Celadon. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we did the preview for the sale. This particular vase was pretty reminiscent of the one that was in the Fujita sale a couple of years ago, with those fabulous Japanese collection. This also came from a Japanese collection, measured 28 inches tall. It was estimated at $200,000 to $300,000. And in the end, it just about doubled its high estimate. It had an extremely good result. Sold for $591,000. And I think we had speculated in the other video that this might do a bit better because of the Fujita result, which everybody is keenly aware of. And Japanese collections are just renowned for great celadons from China. They were very much coveted there, especially in the latter part of the 19th and early 20th century. And some absolutely, as everybody knows, some superb collections there. And this is certainly a very fine example. It did great. All right, now we're going to get on to one of the sort of disappointments of the sale, which is the cover lot. It's never good when a cover lot doesn't sell. This was the Richard Marchant bowl from his collection, and the Marchants are well-known, highly respected dealers in London. This bowl had a very big estimate, $2 to $3 million. They don't turn up all the time, but this one didn't get off the ground. And I think there's a reason why it didn't get off the ground. It's this reason right here. In Hong Kong tomorrow, April 3rd, this auction is going to take place, and this is the Chen Man Lu. They are the collectors, the brothers that own this stuff, have decided to sell just a few things out of their collection. One of them in an interview said recently he was planning on upgrading his collection, which made me sort of laugh. I thought, how much further can you upgrade this collection? But that's what he said. And there are, in this sale, it's coming up, 3 of these mallow bowls, or 3 of these dice bowls rather, that are very similar to the one that was offered at Christie's, belonging to Mr. Marchant. There's this one, and it has a much lower estimate, $383,000 to $640,000. And then there is this one, estimated at $1 to $1.5 million US. So that's a really great bowl, by the way, superb example, a wonderful pattern. And there is yet another one. Okay, it's almost cruel that there's many coming on the market. There's another one also estimated at $383,000 to $640,000, LSD period. And I have to believe that this had an effect on the bidders in New York, saying, well, if there's 3 of them coming up and all of them are estimated, hundreds of thousands, of dollars less than the Marchant bowl, setting aside any quibbling about quality and which is the better bowl, I got to think that this might have slowed down some interest in the New York example, or at least wait to see how these do, and maybe there'll be some offers going back to Christie's to sell their bowl there. But this was a pretty shocking amount of stuff. And if you haven't seen this catalog, come over to bidamount.com. All the catalogs for the Hong Kong sales that are taking place now are up, and you can browse through them. They're pretty interesting. Some great stuff. So I have a feeling that had a lot to do with what happened with the Marchant bowl. These things are all connected. And then we get back to this. This was that really, I thought it was lovely. This was sort of rare, wandly reticulated walled teapot. It was a nice example, and it's just very cleverly done. You see that same kind of articulation on bowls all the time, not often on teapots. was estimated at 40 to 60,000, and it did fine. It sold. It brought $43,750. Didn't blow away its estimate, but it did fine, and it got to where it should, and it has a new owner, all right, which is always a nice thing. All right, and then moving along to this. This was that quite spectacular. Embroidered. This was a silk embroidery of Immortals, the Taoist birthday panel in the Qianlong period. Just unbelievable quality. If you came over and looked at this thing, a silk, imagining a silk from the 18th century of this quality surviving in such great condition. The colors on it were still as vibrant and fresh as they were the day this thing was made. There's no signs of fading, there's no signs of anything bad ever happening to it. And it was estimated at $150,000 to $250,000, and it sold for $187,000 for the panel. All right, which is, I think, a pretty good result. This had a strong estimate on it for a panel, but it did fine just the same. And then moving along to this was that really extraordinary 18th century dragon robe, Lung Pao, in yellow. Very, very rare. You don't see 18th century robes turn up very often because so many of them just got worn out and discarded or cut up over the years and used for different things. You see a lot of 19th century, late 19th century robes, but these 18th century ones are very, very rare. And it had a $300,000 to $500,000 estimate, and ended up selling, I think it was $399,000. So it sold right smack dab in the center of its estimate. It did just fine. Just a terrific example. You know, I keep looking over my left because I have my notes over here, and I don't want to miss anything. All right, and then moving on, there was another robe, that Guangzhou robe, that came up right after this. Also a very rare example, and in superb condition. This thing had a great color, vibrant color, but if you look at it carefully, it looks as though the thing was never worn. All right, it looked like they wove it, took it off the rack, and stuck it in the box, and never saw sunlight, never saw a bit of wear. If you look up here on the collar, there's virtually nothing, no indication that this thing had ever been worn or used much at all. And it did great. It brought $125,000, which is a very good result for that. And then lastly, in this catalog, we're going to look at one last thing, and that was that the Yuan, the Ming Dynasty Junware. It was a number 3 pot. As we mentioned before, these were done in sizes ranging from 1 through 10. This was a number 3. It was a good sized pot, about 10 inches tall, estimated at $2.5 to $3.5 million. It had superb coloring. The color on this, the flambe on this, was absolutely spectacular, and it ended up selling for $3,015,000. All right, it was one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive porcelain sold in New York, I think, that week. But it was absolutely great, and so overall the sale did very, very well, except for the disappointment of the cover lot. And like I said, it's never good when a cover lot doesn't sell, but you know, that's the way it goes sometimes. But Christie's did a great job. Well, all the auction houses did a great job. All right, and then on to this. This was that painting that I had mentioned. This was one of the Chinese painting sale that Christie's had, and we had looked at it because I thought it was such a fascinating bit of work. This was that remembrance of a Ming general, and a painting and edict was put out depicting his value, all of his battles and his history, and all of the different pictures had script on them identifying what was going on. And at the time, I thought the estimate seemed awfully reasonable, $12,000 to $20,000. I even wondered if it wasn't a typo. And in the end, it did fine. It ended up selling for $81,000. So it went 4 times its estimate, which seems a lot more reasonable to me. Maybe they just didn't have a comp to go by to estimate it, or they were just trying to encourage bidders. But it did great, and it was worth every penny of it, I think. It was just a great thing. You don't see these very often. And, this was a terrific example, and that was in this catalog. Alrighty, and then over here, Power and Prestige. This was that sort of small sale on bronzes, but they had some gems in here. I think only one of them didn't sell. I think all of these examples sold. And of course, the cover lot were quite spectacular around here. They weren't the most expensive things that sold. There was some bronze that brought more than twice what these brought, but these were very good. And these were TG Goos, and a pair of them, no less. glass, all right, with great color, estimated at $400,000 to $600,000. And they had a pretty good history behind them, good exhibition history. And they ended up selling for $543,000, which was a very, very respectable result. And getting a pair of these is almost impossible. So I think they brought what they were, certainly brought what they were worth. All right, and then, but the most expensive bronze in the sale out of this catalog was that very, I described it as having a crunchy glaze, that really fabulous Fang Ding. Beautiful example, late Shang, Dynasty, but great color, just absolutely stupendous color, estimated at $1 million to $1.5 million. Had a pretty strong estimate on it, but it was a great bronze, and it ended up selling for $1,095,000. So it did sell, it sort of sold at its low end, but I think it was pretty aggressively estimated, but certainly a great object, and now is on to a new home itself. Alrighty. But all of the bronzes in this sale did very well. This was a European collection, a nice old one, and they obviously had a great eye, so it was all good stuff. And then on to this. This was 2 sales from the Irving collection, and these 2 sales blew the roof off. I was just going to say it, and we'll get to how some of the roofs got blown off in this sale. But the Irvings, as I mentioned before, were legendary collectors. He and his wife began collecting at very early in their marriage. She was, I believe, a school teacher, and he went on into business and was extremely successful, and fueled their ability to build an absolutely unbelievable collection. Part of it is at the Metropolitan Museum now, alrighty, and just fabulous things. And we're going to start with this one. This was part 1. I had them a little out of order. And there's this let's see here. Part 1. I'm going to get over here. Oh, the Jade Cup. Yeah. You remember a couple weeks ago we talked about this. This was that really fabulous looking white jade cup with the Tremera climbing up over the rim of it, and just a stunning color. All of the jades he had in his collection had amazing color. And Mr. Irving and Mrs. Irving, they collected Japanese and Chinese stuff. They had some great Japanese stuff in this sale as well, and it all did extremely well, many times their estimates. And he was not a big auction buyer. He bought mostly from very good dealers. He liked to work with dealers, I assume probably to get the education from them, and to build relationships to get a shot at the best things that come in. And this was one of them. This came from Spinks, and it was estimated at $200,000 to $300,000, and it ended up selling for over 2 times its high estimate. It went to $639,000. But as we discussed a couple weeks ago, the color on this was amazing, the carbon quality was amazing, the proportions, all of it, just great. This thing was 7 inches tall, which is pretty big for a well-colored piece of jade like this, a very pure color. All right, and then we'll move over to this. This was one of the big lots that they sold. It was that amazing inscribed Chinlung fish brush wash with the twin fish on the bottom, and there was a nice write-up on this and lots of illustrations, and it's all inscribed on the back, and you couldn't ask for any more than this. This was just a great example, and it ended up selling for $2.8 million against an estimate of 1 to 1.5 million. So it almost doubled its high estimate. Doubling high estimates when you're in the millions is no small trick. But this was a really rare thing. And again, the color, the quality, the inscription, it had everything going for it. It had everything going for it. And it was just an amazing example. And you can come over and you can blow it up on the catalog and look at the detail of this thing. And just